Beautiful. Thank you everybody for joining us today. And we apologize we got off to like a little 1-minute start, but that's okay. We're all here and the semester's almost over, so life is good. I want to take a minute and introduce everybody. First of all, we have two fabulous interpreters, Jay and Steve, and we want to thank them first and foremost, and also the always wonderful Susie Nitzel, who will be in the background keeping us honest. We love her in a non-sexual harassing way. My name is Lydia Anderson. I am a business faculty person, and I'll let the other two presenters introduce themselves, and then we'll get going.
Hi everyone, Sean Henderson, Dean of Students, Fresno City College, and Human Clicker.
And I am Marianne Valentino. I teach psychology and I facilitate the RAM Racial Equity Lab.
So again, thank you. As Sean goes to the next slide, this is just a follow-up from our breakfast burritos and burnout session. And I know I'm looking through the names of who's here, and I'm glad that you joined us again for this next session. And this is all it is just a continuation. So the goals for today are to share ideas on how to build community in the classroom. We want to present some considerations that assist us with student success. We're going to provide elements of a strong syllabus. We want to share some syllabus statements to help students succeed. And we're going to, equally as important, share statements that help keep faculty out of trouble. And we want this to be hands-on. We want it to be entertaining. We want it to be foremost educational. So if you ever have any questions, throw them in the chat. And between all of us, we will notice you and give you a response. So the first thing that we want to do is figure out how you define student success. I hate the term student success, and I know that's really awful, but I think there's like 50 million definitions. So I want to make it like 50 million, and how many participants do we have now? 50 million and 50. And we're going to do a Jamboard. And Marianne, can you refresh us on what a Jamboard is and then lead us into this exercise? I think she needs to unmute again.
Sorry about that. So this is the intro to the Jamboard slide. We used the same slide last time. If you were here, you can, did somebody put the Jamboard link in the chat yet?
It is.
I don't have it to drop it in there.
Oh, okay.
There.
Oh, there it is. Lydia got it. So go ahead and click on that link to open up the Jamboard. And then you should see along the left-hand side, there's a menu of things that you can do. And one of those is a sticky note. It's the fourth one down. So if you click on that sticky note, it'll bring up a window that allows you to type in, and you can choose different colors if you'd like. And then you can just plop that down onto the Jamboard. And I see somebody wrote, expand their knowledge and technical skills. And then those can be moved around. Career focus. Students pass my class with the grade they want. Students have fun while also learning new ideas. Internships or experiential learning. In at least one student, if at least one student in any of my classes says to me they learned something. When student reaches their own goals for the class and more, grades and concepts. Students learn to achieve the goals they set for themselves. That's an interesting one because it's separate from the content, right? It's learning to achieve your goals. We have linguistics in the house. Student engagement, student success is they had an enjoyable learning experience that will last a lifetime. Yeah, these are interesting. It's more than just the content, right? It's about learning and goal attainment. Lots of good ideas coming in. Lydia, any comments?
No, I'm reading these. These are really great. We'll give everybody just a little bit longer to add something. Get the best out of our students every single day.
I'm not going to put it on the board because I don't multitask very well, but I've heard in the last few days, I've heard people talking about student success being helping students find themselves, find their passions.
We'll keep this board open and we'll go on to the next slide. The RP group, and again, this is left over from our burrito talk. They are burrito leftovers. The RP group surveyed students and asked them to define student success. And I think it's good for us to go back and review this, to review what they said. And then once I go over this wheel, Mary Ann can kind of elaborate a little more. But when students were surveyed, first of all, they said that they wanted to feel directed, that they were successful if they had a goal and they knew how to achieve that goal. Secondly, if they were focused, meaning that they were able to stay on track and they had a method to help them stay on track. Trying to get to my notes here. They were nurtured, meaning that they felt somebody wanted and was there to help them succeed, that they felt like they belonged, that they were engaged, that they actively participated and had a way to connect to other students and to their faculty and to their campus, and also extended to the community, and that they were valued, that the skills, talents, abilities, everything that we were teaching in the classroom actually had purpose and meaning, and that what they contributed was recognized. And finally, that they were directed, that somebody was there actually monitoring their progress and recognizing what they were doing. And Mary Ann's going to kind of add a little something to this, and then I'll have a question for you.
I just wanted to add, I really liked Lydia's, when Lydia and Sean and I got together and we were talking about this presentation, and Lydia added this RP information as a kind of list of factors to reflect on for our syllabi and our pedagogy. I really liked that. So you're going to see that theme throughout our presentation. I also wanted to recognize that many of you have probably gone through an equity-minded syllabus review. And in that equity-minded syllabus review, there are 6 factors that are presented by CUE, the Center for Urban Education. And so maybe you're familiar with those. And they're not necessarily like separate things, right? So I wanted you to see that those 6 factors that are referred to as equity-minded syllabi practices from the Center for Urban Education overlap with these. So one of those that you might be familiar with is demystifying. And I have placed that with directed. And Sean, go ahead and click on the slides there. So demystifying would be directed, right? That would be demystifying our policies and our practices, putting them into language that our students understand. And then welcoming, which is like nurturing, right? Being welcoming and nurturing. Creating a partnership, which engages our students. Oh, sorry, I read the wrong one. Validating our students, which when we validate them, we show them that they are valued. Creating a partnership, which helps our students feel engaged and connected. So I kind of tried to fit them someplace, but I think some of these fit in multiple places, like creating a partnership. Oh, creating a partnership probably fits with engaged and connected, and maybe nurtured as well, right? And maybe directed too, and maybe valued too. Representing that students can see themselves in the class, in the work that you're doing together. And then deconstructing whiteness as the norm, which is really about deconstructing the dominant norms, right? The idea that dominant culture and dominant values are not necessarily reflective of our students' values and beliefs. And so deconstructing that, allowing for that conversation to happen in valuing our students and their beliefs and their values and who they are and what they bring to the classroom.
So in the description, we had asked everybody to have a copy of the syllabi handy so they can kind of start taking notes and adding to or marking out some things that may or may not be applicable. And I would just ask you, as you get started on this journey of tightening up your syllabi, how well do all of these factors reflect into what you currently have in your syllabus, where you want it to be, and also in your pedagogy? And we're going to keep kind of unpeeling the onion on this, so stay with us, but start your markups. As we get into the whole concept of building a welcoming, equity-minded syllabus, and we're going to get into this later, because I think sometimes as faculty we make assumptions about students, and we think because they're older or because they've already been through COVID that they know how to work online, that they've taken a college class before, and not necessarily online, that they know how to use Canvas or they know how to use technology. Also that they know how, when, and that they should communicate with you as their instructor. Some students in their cultures, you don't communicate. It's almost embarrassing. I was talking to a student a few weeks ago, and she was completely lost. And I said, well, why don't you ask the instructor? Oh, no, this instructor's really mean. And I said, well, why don't you ask some of your classmates? She goes, no, because I don't want them to think I'm stupid and that I don't understand. So even those simple little barriers like messaging the instructor or going by an office hour, you need to keep telling them, communicate with me, talk to me, and don't assume that they're going to come to you at first, because it is kind of frightening sometimes. Don't assume that students feel comfortable contacting you for help. Don't assume that they have read and understood your syllabus, and we're going to get into that quite a bit deeper. Don't assume they know Canvas, and don't assume that they're yet self-disciplined to perform up to the expectations or standards that you have for them.
If you go to page 2 of the Jamboard, so go back to the Jamboard, and at the very top, you should see a toggle. It says 1 through 6. So you were on page 1, and if you hit the next frame arrow, it should take you to second page, what students need to know from the syllabus. So if you could start to populate that page, what are the things that come to mind right off the top of your head, what you want students to know from your syllabus? I see expectations, how to contact me, how to reach out with questions, contact information. Is attendance required? How to succeed, class meeting times. I need to silence my phone. Maybe that's in the syllabus.
Yeah. Office hours, everything needed to navigate and succeed in the course, including, yeah, look at that, including the right language. That goes under demystifying. Assignments and requirements for grading. We've got a lot of duplicate expectations and how to contact me. Class meetings and office hours. You know, it sounds silly, but there was an instructor, we were talking about this. It's like, why do you need to write where the class is or when they meet? It's on when they signed up for the class. Unfortunately, a lot of students, if they're brand new, it gets overwhelming to them. I can't tell you how many students stop by my office the first weeks of class wanting to know when their class meets. So really good. How to reach out with questions. Materials needed. Very good. Okay, now I want you to all look at Marianne because her face is going to get really red on this next slide. She's very passionate about this.
So I believe this is mine, yes?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. So before I kind of get into the content of the actual slide, wanted to go back to the last one just a little bit on the assumption piece. First and foremost, in working with Marianne and Lydia on this presentation and this concept, it's obvious to me how much they care about you as faculty and how much they want to work with faculty and create a community of learners here at Fresno City College. I've also worked a lot with our student body over the years and know how much respect they have for the faculty here at Fresno City College. So much so that they're afraid of you. Somehow, we need to find ways that let them know that we don't bite, that we love working with them, that we look forward to seeing them both inside and outside of the classroom. And more than anything, that I tell students all the time, I'll be there to shake your hand when you walk off the stage at graduation. We frighten them. So if you know that and you understand that, maybe it changes the dynamic in the class a little bit. And just carrying forward from our last conversation, or our last presentation to this one, our last conversation really focused on creating community in the classroom, but also having to deal with the very real issue of burnout that I think most of us have experienced some symptoms of during this pandemic. Your syllabus is the tool that helps create the boundaries for your community. So the elements that you want to have in a strong syllabus is that it's welcoming, that it gives the impression that they belong there and that they're wanted to be there, that your syllabus is supportive and provides instruction for them and the resources that they're going to need to be successful in the class, that it communicates your expectations of them as students in the course, both academically and socially, that your policies are outlined and they're very clear and simple and stated simply. And finally, that your syllabi is connecting. And what I mean is ways that you can connect with them and they can connect with you, whether it's via the phone, email, your office hours, discussion boards, and Canvas, etc. And please don't wear the shirt.
Can I say something about the shirt
Please do.
and the mug and the whatever? So in the RAM Racial Equity Lab, we had a student panel last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And one of the students on the student panel said that he asked one of his instructors a question, and the instructor said it's in the syllabus. And he said that it felt very condescending to him, that he had read the syllabus. He didn't understand something in the syllabus. He needed elaboration. He needed clarification. And when the instructor said it's in the syllabus in this dismissive, condescending tone, he no longer wanted to engage in that class. And another one of the students said that she has trouble because of her learning disability understanding the instructions sometimes. She needs, again, she needs elaboration. She needs conversation about it. And she said she would get really frustrated when instructors would tell her to go figure it out on her own, read the syllabus, read the instructions, and then they would get mad at her when she would get it wrong, when she misinterpreted, when she misunderstood the directions. Then they would get upset with her, even though she had asked for clarification. The answer was, it's in the syllabus or it's in the instructions. Did you read it? This condescending tone. So yeah, I get really passionate about these t-shirts. Don't wear these t-shirts. They're condescending. They're demeaning.
And I think that the other thing before we move on is to make sure if students are questioning your policy, go back and read it, or have somebody that's never seen this policy read it and make sure that it makes sense. I had that with one of my online classes in the discussion board requirements. As much as I thought it was as clear as day, if students are asking questions, go back and read it through some fresh eyes and say, well, maybe I need to tweak it a little or rephrase it in a way that makes more sense. And maybe it made sense 3 years ago, but this group of students need it to be rephrased a different way. But yeah, that's part of the demystifying. So, thanks, Marianne.
One more thing about that. I know you said I get passionate about this. I also would challenge you to, if you still think that t-shirt's okay, I challenge you to talk to the admin aides about how many times we faculty, we go into their office and we ask them a question, and the answer that they could easily give us is, it's in the faculty handbook or it's in your contract. But they don't do that. They very graciously answer our questions. They answer our questions. They don't say, go off and find it. We need to look at ourselves.
So there are some required policies that need to be included in every syllabi, and we'll just highlight these very quickly. These are based on guidance from AR 7122 under the duties and responsibilities of an instructor, as well as the accreditation standards from ACCJC.
And the Academic Senate checklist.
And the Academic Senate checklist. Thank you. This information comes right from the checklist. I really don't want to read it, but I will. You just need the course name and number, the meeting day and time, the semester and the year, the schedule code, units, textbook and materials, description of the course, the learning outcomes, objectives, and any prereqs, co-reqs, or advisories that are associated with your syllabus. Those are the required ones.
Sorry, Marianne, can you just give a quick comment about what the syllabus checklist is? And everybody, it's posted in the chat right now.
Okay. I also just wanted to reiterate, I think something that you already said, Lydia, maybe, that some of these things that Sean just read might seem kind of weird. Like, why do we need this stuff, right? The students know this. It's in WebAdvisor, it's in self-service. Why do you need the semester and the year? We need to remember that the syllabus also serves as an archival document for the class. So when students are wanting to go to a different college, they'll take that syllabus with them for a course waiver, or the counselors are using the syllabi for certain things. So it's not just for that semester with that student. It also serves as an archival document. That's why some of this is important to be on there. And then what's the syllabus checklist? I thought we had a slide that said syllabus.
We do. It's a couple of slides away.
Okay, so
So just to kind of break down the required policies, under the faculty information, your name needs to be there, your email and phone number, your office location and hours, and the division office phone if you're part-time faculty. The important dates need to be included are drop deadlines and the final exam and time. Those are required under the important dates. You also need to have statements regarding your attendance policy, your drop policy, late work policy, plagiarism and dishonesty, a disability statement, topics covered, major assignments and dates, and your grading scales for all assignments, even if they're quizzes, and what the weights are. This is the syllabus checklist that is being referred to and was just reviewed once again by Academic Senate. And I believe this is the latest version, hot off the press.
It is.
And I believe there's a link in the chat for this. And what you'll see the checkboxes on the far left column. The column next to it lets you know if that policy is required or recommended. So if it's required, it'll be in all caps. If it's a recommendation, it'll be REC in lowercase or OPT for optional. And then at the very end, it includes a list of notes for you to make sure everything is correct in your syllabi. Here are some not required or optional policies. It's either do it or don't. Get it? The graphic? That's pretty cool. Never mind. Here we go. All right. Recommended policies. Some course. Yes.
Sean, can we back up to the don't for a minute? For optional policies, I think it's important because a lot of this is, we forget about online instructors. For online and hybrid, because I'm dealing with a couple different situations, make sure you have policies for, like, if there are bad links, because sometimes students think, oh, the link doesn't work, therefore I don't have to do that assignment. Or if my electricity went down or I lost internet access, what do? What is your grace period? What if their laptop got stolen? What about group discussions? What about netiquette on the discussions or inappropriate behavior, or when you have group assignments? Those are not required policies, but you need to be clear about what the expectations are for behavior and exceptions if they can't make it to some of these or address some of these issues. Because if not, they're going to be upset with you as the instructor. And if there's no policy and you say, no, a deadline's a deadline, they're going to end up in Sean's office. Or if it's inappropriate behavior with a group and they send a group member an inappropriate email or text with inappropriate language, those are things that unfortunately we need to be proactive in setting what the expectations are, again, so they don't end up with Sean.
Thank you for that reminder, Lydia. Well, for one thing, when it comes to behavior in the online environment, I don't know that most of our students consider the online environment to be the classroom. And there have been some unfortunate things said in discussion boards to other students or the faculty member themselves. And when it comes to me and we're meeting with the student, my question would be, well, would you stand up in the middle of your class if you were all here physically and say that same statement to your teacher? Well, heck no, that would be stupid. Exactly. So just remind them, a discussion board is the same as standing up in the middle of class and making an announcement. They need to be able to connect those two. So here are some of the recommended policies that are on the checklist. If it's applicable to the course or to the occupation, punctuality. It'd be nice if you included a holiday calendar. Sometimes, holidays fall on class days, and they should be aware. If you allow extra credit and how that occurs, you may want to give them a heads up on when topics will be covered over the course of the semester, and other college support services, especially academic support, health, wellness support, and other areas on campus.
Sean, I'd like to comment.
Yes, sorry, my
I thought you were
apologies.
going to say, of course you do. I just want us to be mindful with the punctuality of if it's a face-to-face class, of students taking the bus, and you know, those equity issues around that of taking the bus and childcare and all of those things that might cause a student to be late. And with the holiday calendar, I'd like us to think about, because I think that's a good place to think about deconstructing whiteness as the norm, or deconstructing dominant culture as the norm, thinking about the holidays that some of our students recognize because of their culture that we don't recognize, and having a statement in the syllabus that allows for students to communicate their holidays with you. And if you have a test that falls on the date of a very important religious holiday, that you honor that. So that's something to think about with regard to that deconstructing whiteness as the norm, which is deconstructing dominant culture, right? Those holidays that are important to the dominant culture are not necessarily the holidays that are important to some of our students.
You may also want to consider putting some behavior policies into your syllabus, specifically use of computers or cell phones, tablets, et cetera, during class time. Are those allowed to be out? Are they not allowed to be out? I think phones have become somewhat ubiquitous, but I would have you consider this. It is their learning environment. When we take it away, we take away their way of finding information. So just wanted to put that out there. Other important behaviors or behaviors that you may think are important, there could be certain industry standards depending on the program and the major that you are a part of. And then just what's appropriate for the learning environment that you're creating. Those are some of the optional policies that you can include. And then finally, just the equity considerations that you're going to want to have once your syllabus is completed. Does it demystify the college and make it more understandable and approachable and accessible? Is it welcoming to the students who are coming into your class? Are they feeling cared for and validated? And do you value their learned experiences outside of the classroom? And I think that's a little bit of what Marianne was talking about when we look outside of the dominant culture. Lydia, you're muted.
I'm still trying to get used to this computer. I'm ready for the next slide. I'm ready for my close-up. So whenever we start talking about equity and equity-minded syllabi, everybody has different perspectives and understanding of what a syllabi should include in the statements. And even Sean, Marianne, and I don't completely agree on some things. But we recognize a couple of things. Your syllabi needs to be in your own voice, and your policy needs to make sense for your class. Because some people will say, oh, but you need to have this policy. And depending on what the discipline is you're teaching, there are some areas where you can't have flexibility. I teach human resource management, and policies are in place to protect you. And these policies need to be in place to protect your student and to protect you and to protect this campus. But the one thing we all agree on is that the required policies that are listed on the syllabus checklist are there. If people don't like the word required, but they're there for a reason. We also agree that no matter what you have on your syllabus, all of our students need to feel welcome and that they belong. And I was having this discussion with a faculty member, and she said, I have a student that can't read. They're welcome in my class, but they don't belong in this class. I said, but you can still make them feel welcome and that they belong on this campus. Hook them up with the right resource and with a counselor, and let's get them in the right class so that they can get their reading and critical thinking up to stuff so that they'll eventually end up in your class where they can perform well. You know, I know some instructors, I used to know some instructors, thank God they retired. They would do everything they could to scare the students off the first 1 or 2 weeks of class. That's not a teacher. We also agree that students need to be successful in their academic goals, and we need to do everything we can to help them do that. And when Sean and Marianne kept saying demystifying your statements, you shouldn't need a PhD to understand what the policy is. And honestly, I look through the catalog and I look through our mission and vision and goals and objectives, and sometimes it's like they're just putting words on paper to look pretty, and you need a PhD to understand what they're trying to communicate. So just look at it with a fresh sense of a student's eyes instead of ours, because I know Marianne's been working with Dawn Lopez on making sure that we can take some of those required statements and put them in our own words, because the required statements that the district has are written like an AR instead of what it means to the student. If you need DSPNS services, and just sometimes we have policies that are not clear and easy to understand. So we can go to the next slide. And everybody says, well, why is equity so important? Equity, 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 and what does this mean? And if you have gone through RAMRIL, and I know Marianne will comment on this in a minute, but this is from FCC's data dashboard. And what it did was it broke down success rates. And before you look at these and start questioning the numbers, they're actually, the percentages, the gap is still the same, but the percentages are a little higher because this was 2021, and COVID and the way that we registered COVID drops for success kind of skewed the data, but the data still tells a story. If you look at the success rate, Asian females have an 83.9% success rate. Black males have a 63.7% success rate here on this campus. And if this gap does not concern you, then come and talk to Sean, Marianne, and I, and we'll take you to coffee and explain why this should concern everybody. And we need to see what we can do to decrease that equity gap. And a lot of times we lose students the first, probably I'd say the first week of class. We can be kind and say the first two or 3 weeks of class, but this just, I see, every time I see this slide, my heart just kind of sinks a little deeper. But we need to look at our own data, look at our students, and these are all individuals with their dream. They took the risk of registering and coming and signing up for class, and how many of them succeed and how many of them don't. And it goes back to us as faculty. What did we do or not do that could have kept those individuals in class and helped them on their academic goals? So I'll let Marianne and Sean comment on this because I can see it both on their faces. So talk, people.
I just wanted to make sure that we understand that these are our averages, right? Behind these numbers are individual students. And so at the top, we see those Asian females. I don't want that to perpetuate the model minority myth that Asians are fine and they don't need our help, right? Behind that number are Asian females who are failing, who are embarrassed to ask for help or ask for help and don't get it, right? So behind each of those numbers is a full spectrum of A's, B's, C's, D's, F's, and withdrawals right behind that. These are average scores. So at the top, I want us to be mindful of that model minority myth. If you're not familiar with that, look that up and do some reading on that. And at the bottom with the Black students, we also need to be very mindful that these numbers are not perpetuating stereotypes about Black females and Black males. We need to be asking ourselves, what is it that we are doing or not doing that is contributing to these numbers?
Mr. Henderson, do you have anything to share on this slide?
Not on this particular slide, but I think I share all the time that there's a whiteboard on our fridge with sayings all the time. And the last one was one that I can't stop thinking of. And it's a Carl Jung quote that basically said, thinking is difficult. That is why most people judge. It does take time to put yourself in the shoes of our students, to try and understand the path it took for them to get to the campus in the first place. It's different for all of them. All of them have challenges. And I know that we're always, sometimes we feel like students get in the way. I understand that, I get it. But it is important to our community that all of our students are successful. It is important to our community that all of our students are successful. It's important to our state. It's important to our economy. It's important to the overall health and well-being of all of us in this community. And yes, all student success numbers have risen, yet the gap remains. And that's what we're really concerned about, is that while it's rising, the gap should be shrinking. So that's really the importance of this slide, is to highlight that while we are more intent and focused on student success, we also need to be mindful of the gap.
And your data, your class data might not look like this at all. Right? Where are your equity gaps, if you have any? This is my pitch for RAMREL. So right now, the only way that the IR office will provide you with your specific data, like I can look at how are students disaggregated by gender and race, ethnicity, what are their success rates in my general psychology class, in my biological psychology classes. I have a dashboard that allows me to look at my data in my courses. And the reason that I have that is through RAMREL, the RAM Racial Equity Lab. And so it is a perk of the lab that if you sign up for one of the labs, and it is a commitment, a semester commitment. I see some graduates in here of RAMREL, so they can tell you it's worth it, I hope. Valuations are very strong. It is a perk that you will get your own dashboard that will live with you forever. As long as you're teaching here, it will be updated every semester. You'll be able to see your data. So track your data over time. And if a bunch of you in the same department go through, so a bunch of biology instructors go through, they can now compare their data. And one might see that their data maybe does reflect the college's data. But another instructor might see, you know what, Black females are experiencing a lot of success in my class. And now those two biology instructors can have a conversation. They can compare their syllabi. They can go into each other's classrooms. What is it that this instructor is doing that Black females are experiencing success in that class and not in this class? This really opens up the conversation for equity.
Yeah, I'd like to add, and then somebody can read the question in the chat. I'd like to add, every department pulls up this data as part of their program review. And I think sometimes we do it to just check off a box, because You can pull this up by your department, and I believe you can pull it up by section. Sean and Mav and I were trying to argue where to get it, but if not, call up our IR department. They will help you pull that data. But to get it specifically for you, you got to go through RAMREAL, and it is really, really valuable information. I've gone through a syllabus review so many times, but if it shows an equity gap, it doesn't mean you're racist. And I think that was part of the other issue is, you know, well, I'm not a racist, or I only have one Hispanic male, I only have one Black male in my class. And this is not to get people defensive. This is not to point fingers at anybody. It's to back up and wonder, you know, the first time I went through this, I was like, oh my gosh. I was looking at where people were seated in class, who I called on, who I didn't, what the dynamics that happened the first 2 weeks of class. And it just makes you more aware of the different needs of our students and how we can connect and reach out to them. So this isn't at all about you being a bad teacher. This is about getting this data to help you become a better teacher. What were our questions on the discussion board?
I wanted to comment on something that Edward Krause wrote about how do you reach a student who doesn't seem to be responding, right? Asks for help, but then doesn't respond. Of course, I can't give you one right answer because it depends on the student, right? That's kind of the best answer. But that question reminded me of a student who said that his first time at college, he remembered this particular teacher who just kept after him, like kept emailing him, are you okay? Here's the resources. And he said at some point, because of what was going on in his life, he just like shut down and he dropped out of college and he was feeling really badly about himself. But this one teacher just wouldn't give up. Like she just kept messaging him and telling him, you know, it's okay that you're failing the class. You can come back next semester and here's what you can do and come talk to me. And he said, she just wouldn't stop. And even though I never responded to her, she wouldn't stop. And he said, and that made me feel like she cared about me and I did want to come back. And it was just like, okay, she never knew that, right? There's no way for her to know that because he never told her that. So we don't know the impact that we have. So Edward, you don't know the impact that you have. You keep reaching out to that student, and even though that student might continue to get Fs, that student might remember that you cared and come back in the fall, in the spring, 2 years from now. We don't know.
We have another question from Louisa Goodwin Bransford. And she said in some Asian families, they're not allowed to seek assistance from their teacher. And she had that experience with an Asian female student. She worked with her to obtain the needed tutorial and not cause her shame with her family. Cultural differences in reaching and communicating with teachers. Sean or Marianne, any comments on that?
So I'm remembering a student panel that I participated in pre-COVID, where the students actually did research on what equity meant, and they discovered the trauma scale and how that kind of mirrored what they had gone through in their K-12 experience. And almost every young man on the panel, there were 4 Latino males and a female. Each one of them said they will never ask for help. Never. And they said it would probably take about 7 or 8 times of you bothering them before they would respond. It would take that many times for them to develop trust. 8 times. That's a lot of nudging. But each student said, yep, won't ask for help. You can ask me if I want help, and I'm going to say no until the 9th time. So just food for thought.
Yeah, that's a lot of asking in a very brief window. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So if we go back and we look at the student success factors of demystifying, welcoming, validating, creating, and representing, these are just some considerations, examples of welcoming statements. And especially if everybody has a Canvas homepage, I think at this juncture, the majority of faculty do have Canvas. Set up a homepage. If you need help, message me and I'll give you a link to the virtual hub, the faculty virtual hub, because it walks you right through how to set up a homepage. But even on your Canvas homepage and in your syllabus, have a welcoming statement. Welcome to class. I'm glad you're here. I care about you and your success. Also make it very clear, to be successful in this class, we will need to boom, 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 and be very explicit about it. Avoid ambiguity. Say that 5 times, don't. And also phrase things positively. When I first went through my syllabus review, I was like, oh my gosh, the person redlined all the don't, do not. And I was like, so embarrassed. But phrase it in a positive, these are the expectations. And I can't tell you how many times, and in almost every message and my weekly messages, I say, I am here to help you succeed. Please reach out to me. I do not bite. I shower daily. I brush my teeth. I'm here to help you. But again, be encouraging, be supportive. And even if a student misses the mark, you can still correct their behavior in a positive manner. So those are some equity-minded actions. Sean or Marianne, do you have anything else to contribute?
Just that some students, you can tell them that they belong, and they don't believe you. And that goes back to that trust, right? They don't trust us that we believe in them. They don't trust us depending on their histories. So we have to earn that trust and build that trust and convince them that we believe in them so they can believe in themselves. Oh, this is me. Questionable practices. I might have been able to come up with a longer list than this, but this is what I came up with for today. Just being really mindful of the punitive language. Do you have areas of your syllabus that are bolded and all capped, right? That's like you're screaming at them. And so why are you screaming at them? Because you might be screaming at them because of something that a student did 2 semesters ago, but now you're screaming at these students who didn't do anything yet, right? So why are you screaming at them? What does that feel like as a brand new student in your class? Their first interaction with you might be with the syllabus, because if you put that on Canvas before they even set foot in your class, or it's an online class, so you're never going to meet them, you're screaming at them, right? So just be really mindful of punitive language that's bold and all capped. Is that really necessary? If you're going to have that kind of punitive language, really just think about that. Where does that come from for you? Is there a different way to word it? What is your rationale for that? Maybe you need to, if you're going to have a really strict policy, I'm not telling you can't have strict policies, explain to the student the importance of the policy. And you don't probably don't need to do it in all caps like you're screaming at them. This questionable practice really bothers me. I don't know if you're aware that when you use simple syllabus, that means anybody can go in and read your syllabi, right? They are now public, and I will periodically just go poke around and I'll read some. And I've seen this policy more times than I'd like to note. No makeups on tests except for emergencies, and if you communicate to the instructor prior to the test. I don't get it. I don't get it. How am I as a student going to communicate an emergency prior? By definition, an emergency means I can't plan for it, right? So is the expectation that if the student had a real emergency, right before the exam, someone called them and told them that they had a death in their family, you want them to get on the phone and call you? That's what you want them to do in order to make arrangements for a makeup test? Or they need to rush to the hospital because their loved one was just in an accident. Oh, wait, I got to stop and call my teachers because I have a test today. Really, let's think about our policies. Do they make sense? Right? At a human level, do they make sense? This policy makes no sense to me. The instructor, so the next one, a syllabus that's all instructor focused and not student focused, right? And so it's all about the instructor and not about the student. Really complicated policies and practices. I think Sean already mentioned this, or maybe it was Lydia. You shouldn't need a PhD to understand the policies and the practices. How am I being graded? What does this make sense? Like if you've got to show it to a few different people to try to figure out the policy or the practice, then you need to make it easier to grasp. Requiring proof, that puts a burden on students. Do you really need a medical note to excuse? I can get a medical note really easily because I have really good medical insurance. I can get a medical note. Can these students easily get a medical note? Do you really want them to have to go out of their way when they have the flu to prove to you that they had the flu? Or is that an undue burden? Do you really need a death certificate or an obituary? I went to 4 funerals in 1 year. I took 4 days off in 1 year. And SCCCD did not ask me for proof. I did not have to show proof to my employer. Do we need proof? And then we get into this whole, but they might be lying to me, that one in, I don't know how many students who might lie to you. It's not worth it to put that burden on the student who is telling you the truth. And I can tell you that there was no way I was going to show proof of a death that I had in my family when I was 20 years old, a suicide I had in my family. There was no way I was going to show proof of that. I wasn't going to ask my parents for proof. I wasn't going to show proof. So just think about the burden that we're putting on students. Is that an undue burden? And is it an inequitable burden, right? This student, it would be easy for them to show proof with a medical note. All of these other students, it would not be. And then it shouldn't read like VCR instructions. That's my short list. I probably have a longer list.
Marianne, we have a couple. First of all, we had a hand raised, and let me see where it went. Did the hand go down? Bethany, we're going to unmute you. Maybe you can ask Marianne your question.
Yeah, it's probably a simple question, but the instructor versus student focused, what does that look like? If it's instructor, can you give me an example of?
I think that actually was Sean's contribution to the slide that, oh, don't look at me like that, Sean.
I'd like to, like, is it when you're talking about yourself all the time? Or
a syllabus, yeah, a syllabus that has lots of pictures of the self, like here's me on my vacation with my dog, and here's me on me, like all of these pictures of the self, which is good to have some of you, right? You want students to get to know you, to feel connected to you. So you want a little bit, I think it's nice to have a little biography. This is who I am. That helps to connect. There needs to be a balance, right? It's not all about you. And certainly not all your vacation pictures, you know, where you went all around the world. Because you want to be mindful of connecting with the students and students feeling welcomed into your class.
I see it.
I think the other statement I would say is if it says the instructor and the student versus I and you, makes it a little more personal in how you phrase things. There's another question here, and I kind of agree with this person, but this is a perfect example of how everybody has their own policies and reasons. I think this was from Leslie Johnson. She doesn't agree with a statement Marianne made, and I think it's probably about deadlines, or if you have a job, you need to call in if you have an emergency and not just be a no-show. And again, and even for something like a death in the family, I have had students lie to me about deaths in the family, and then it was found out later. I think we just all need to use our own judgment and sensitivity on those issues, because again, you know, I teach HR, and there are deadlines that a judge or an employer can't get by with, or if we just don't show up to class. But I think the bigger word is grace and appropriateness. And Marianne, are you okay with that? Because like I said, Sean, Marianne, and I don't all agree on some of these issues. So one of you speak,
Well,
and then we have another question with Louisa. You're next. You're so patient.
what they're trying to say is Marianne and Lydia don't agree with Sean. I think that's what's being said. My contribution. Well, and look, I love the healthy argument. And I love that I'm doing it with colleagues that I trust. And if I'm not 100% and they're letting me know where I'm missing, I enjoy that. I think it's healthy. But my question to them is usually, who's the class for? And that's where we kind of get into a little bit of a back and forth. And that's where the student-centered versus faculty-centered kind of conversation comes in, is who's the class actually for? You can probably tell which side of that equation I land on, but that's what they pay me for. And that's why I'm in this particular job, is to advocate for them. And I hope it doesn't feel like it's at your expense. I love the faculty here. I'm friends with many of you, personally and professionally. But you hired me to do this. So if you get frustrated with me, I apologize. But I am always willing to talk. And I will admit when I'm wrong. I definitely will. So I appreciate that we're doing this. You know, I say that I'm the human clicker. As a dean of students, I really don't have any authority in the classroom. I just don't. This is born out of conversations with faculty on how to better serve our students and how to create a better learning environment so we avoid problems in the classroom, so it doesn't have to blow up, that we don't end up in these back and forths with students in the classroom or put ourselves in situations that could become dangerous. So sorry, I am student leaning, I guess, but that doesn't mean I always agree. I just empathize.
Yeah, this was one of those things where the three of us didn't totally agree. I teach business. We're training them to be successful at work, blah, blah, blah. I can see your eyes roll. Louisa Goodwin Bransford has her hand raised. And I think Susie's going to unmute her. And then mute her if she doesn't agree with Mike.
Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me now? Okay, so I agree with what everyone is saying. I do try to make my syllabus student-centered. I teach in the allied health department, which means I'm teaching people who are going to take care of you and I health-wise in the future. But I look at the last statement, 12 pages. My syllabus tends to become longer because of things that have happened that I would have never fathomed to think. And when the student says, well, Mrs. Bransford, it's not written in your syllabus, so then the next semester you add it in, so that doesn't happen. But, so I don't know if this is the situation with some other instructors that their syllabus becomes 12 pages because of incidents that have occurred in the past. But I know for me, that's one reason why mine tend to be a little bit longer because of things that have happened in the past. And I teach in the allied health department, which means, like you, Lydia, you're teaching people to become business people, and I'm teaching people to become healthcare providers that are going to provide you and I care. So that's my reason for why my syllabus becomes longer, is because of incidents like that. So thank you for letting me voice that.
I want to mention, go ahead, Sean.
There are disciplines that will require. There are disciplines that will require it. I guess what we're saying is, does your particular discipline need 12 pages?
We're going to get into that in a second. Susie posted the simple syllabus, and I'm not quite sure what happened, but I want to make sure everybody's aware of simple syllabus. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's excellent because, and again, this is something all three of us don't agree on. Anybody that uses Canvas, which should be everybody now, simple syllabus is embedded into Canvas, and it's a software. And what it does is it provides some consistency for students so that there are certain elements that are all in there. If you use simple syllabus, it already has the required statements embedded in there, which makes your life easy. It takes a little while to set it up initially, unless you want to ask the faculty member that's already using it, if you can kind of take a look at theirs and use it. But again, the step-by-step guide, I pulled that together. It's got screenshots and it walks you through. It's a pain in the butt when you first set it up, but once you get it going every semester, it makes your life easier. And then you can get in and keep modifying statements. And sometimes they can be pretty lengthy. I'll go through and I'll delete half of my syllabus, and then I'll have drama, and I got to go back and put in a policy or revise a policy. So I hear you, but download that document. And if you haven't used simple syllabus yet, take a look at it. I think it's a valuable tool. There are a lot of flaws in it, but nothing's perfect yet. We're going to keep refining it. And it's something that I think helps create consistency for our students. Marianne or Sean, you have anything? Okay. So this next slide, I have, and then I'll let Sean talk. Right now, thank you for everybody that's been supporting the business division, Dean Tim Woods. I'm working out of his office on his computer, so life is not normal here. Instructional deans see drama, and the first thing that they do when a student comes to them is pull up the instructor's syllabus and look at what the statement says. And when we were asked to consider team teaching this workshop, it was kind of based out of the fact that we don't like drama, or the instructional deans don't like drama. We can walk away with it. And some faculty will say, hey, this is the way it is, this is the way it is. And just last week, I told a student, I can't do anything about this, but here's what you can do, because you have rights. And you can do a grade petition complaint, or you can, students have rights, and it's important that they know that as well. But in a perfect world, we want to avoid drama. So this is why we put this slide here, because that's the first thing that your instructional dean is going to do. Is a student's going to come in, the instructional dean pulls up the syllabus and immediately looks, and then we involve Sean. And then Sean, take it away.
Yeah, I will ask for the syllabus to see what the policies of the classroom are. I mean, I know what our ARs are, I know what ed code is, and I know what our student rights are, but the syllabus is that covenant between the instructor and the students of how the class will operate. So it's usually, what is the allegation? What's the policy? What is the evidence that the policy was broken? What is the standard? Is there consistency in enforcement? As Lydia mentioned, faculty and students both have rights. And it's my job to make sure that all rights are respected. But, my job is to uphold the policy and to see where one might have been broken, and then work to resolve it. And usually it requires reviewing the syllabus. I can tell you that they've gotten better over the years, but there are some that are still either confusing because there's too much information, or confusing because there's not enough. Most of the time, when it's a behavior issue that is not related to cheating or plagiarism, it's a personality conflict, typically. And it becomes you said something disrespectful, and this is how we're going to deal with it. So that's how the drama occurs. Just make sure your policies are clear and easy to understand, and I will uphold them. Was there more, Lydia?
No.
This is your slide, not mine, actually.
We're gonna actually switch gears now, because now that you've looked at or started considering your syllabi, we're gonna start talking about creating a welcoming environment. But before we go there, I want to challenge you, and we're gonna put the challenge up at the end. Make a friend with somebody in another division, get your syllabi and exchange syllabi, and have them read it and have them comment on it. Is it welcoming? Does it make sense? Because if I have a colleague look at it, if I had Janelle Carrion, she knows my teaching style, she knows how I have my class set up, she knows the subject. So she's gonna say, yeah, this makes sense. But if I have Mary Ann look at it, Mary Ann's like, what is this? What do you mean by this? Because it's a different set of eyes from a different discipline, which will give you a better perspective of what your students think and what makes sense and not sense to them. So I really challenge you to do that before we close the drama on the syllabus, because now we're going to move to creating a welcoming environment.
And this is Jamboard page 3. So go back to the Jamboard and advance to page 3, and we can share some ideas on what you do to create a welcoming environment. Pizza, I want to take that class. Whose class is that?
We have a raised hand.
Leslie.
Hold on. Leslie, you should be able to speak now.
Can you hear me?
Hold on, I've got some reverb.
Why don't we go ahead, and Mary Ann, you want to comment on the Jamboard while we're doing this, just in the interest of time? We've got to keep.
Sure, I'm sorry. I was trying to read the chat at the same time, and so it's like a lot going on. Because Sean, I would say you got to go to your academic senate and see what they say about a template. Let's see. Welcoming profile picture, learn names ASAP, learn preferred names and pronouns, share my story as a first-generation student in college. Yeah, share our stories. You know, even if you were not a first-generation college student, you can share, there's something you can share about your story that I'm sure students will connect to. And it's kind of interesting. It can be like a really small thing that they will connect to, that you can connect with the student on. Accessible and clear Canvas instructions with a welcoming page. I like the video self-instructions. A welcome
Okay, I can't-
email before class starts. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I cannot figure out, Leslie's on here twice and I can't, even when I unmute her, I'm getting that reverb. Her question in the chat was, what happens when you follow your syllabus and other instructors do not?
I'm not sure what that means. Other instructors do not. Is there a shared syllabus? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I think that that's going to have to be something with the faculty to all agree on. Would that not, I guess we'd need an example, would we not, Sean? But I know that's tough when, you know, even a classroom policy, no eating in the classroom, and then, you know, well, Marianne lets her students eat in the classroom. That's between Marianne and her students and when the computers get ruined. But yeah, and that's something you have to bring up with your faculty colleagues, is have a discussion in your department meeting about what are important policies and how to be consistent. I know that's sometimes a challenge because we love our colleagues in a non-sexual harassing way, but sometimes it's a challenge. I get it. Okay, shall we read any more of these, or we want to? So we just have some ideas for how to build community in the classroom. It's like we lost all the energy in this thing. Sean, let's go to the next slide. There we go. Get it back. To ramp it up, man. I have a whole desk full of prizes here. So let's go. How do we build community in the classroom? And there's a couple things that we can do even before class begins. And I noticed that on the Jamboard, a lot of you send welcome messages a week or two before class starts. I know I get on WebAdvisor literally 3 weeks before the class starts, said district records show you're enrolled. Here's what you need to do to log into Canvas. I'm going to open it up a week early. We call that week 0. And just publish the Canvas so you can get familiar with it. Once they get into the Canvas, they log in a week early so that I teach 9-week classes, so they got to hit the ground running. So it gives them a week to read the syllabus, get familiar with how the navigations and everything. I have a welcoming homepage. I have a welcome message in the syllabus. And I provide as many details as possible. And I think one of the challenges with teaching online is that sometimes we almost give them too much. You know, we give them videos and links and everything in the world that they just like, tell me what I need to do. But those that are coming to campus, I tell them the first week to come early, although who knows what's going to happen in the fall. But I used to tell them to come early the first weeks of campus because you can't find a place to park, and give them a map of where to park, where the classroom is, so that they get an idea. I prepare a day 1 activity so everybody gets to know themselves, both online and for face-to-face. The other thing is to get on the Canvas Faculty Virtual Hub. It's such a great resource. And it's got some really good articles also about how to build community. And one of these I stole, I don't know if Sue's on here or not, but I stole it from her. I'll probably tell her, or one of you guys are probably telling her that I stole something from her. Oh, look at that. Susie has the same article. Oh my gosh, we didn't even plan that. It's a great article on how to promote student engagement. And I think Marianne might even have it in the next slide. Highlights of it. Look, 3 great minds. Go ahead, Marianne.
I think mine might be a different article. I think it's a different one. There are lots of good articles in the faculty focus. So this article has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I took one out. So I would encourage you to read the article because I know Lydia's wanting us to go move along a little bit so she can give away her prizes. So this article, the one that I took out is about learning styles, because I'm going to pull my hair out if we start talking about learning styles. Learning strategies is okay, but the article talks about learning preferences, and sometimes the student's learning preference is not the best learning strategy. So I have a little bit of an issue with that one. We need to teach students good learning strategies that might not align with their preferences. I like to be all by myself, leave me alone, but I learn better when I am forced to be with people. It's my preference not to be. It is a better strategy to learn with others. So that's why that one's not on this list. So what did make the list is making connections with students. They've done great work at Aurora College in Colorado. The math department has done some really phenomenal work in closing their equity gaps. And one of the things that they have implemented is first day activities where they get to know each other, where it's not just getting to know me as the instructor and learning the syllabus. It's getting to know you too. Let's get to know each other. So making those connections with students early, being enthusiastic and passionate about the content of our class. When Sean looked at that, he was like, are there people that are not? That's where that burnout comes in. We need to be mindful of, are we still enthusiastic and passionate about the content and about being educators and bringing that into the classroom, building trust. And for some students, particularly as a white female, I need to be cognizant of the fact that students of color might come into the class not trusting me. And so I need to understand that, respect that, and work on building trust with my students. Modeling empathy, kindness, and compassion. The way that I treat my students is going to be the way they treat each other, is going to be the way they treat me, right? Modeling that, empowering students through their strengths, expecting a growth mindset, and welcoming mistakes as part of the learning process. So I encourage you to read the whole article if you'd like more information about all 7 of those ways of building community in the classroom. Page 4 and 5 are the opportunity to share ideas, some specific ideas of things that you do that have worked really well to build community. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't leave the online out of the conversation. It is even more challenging to build community in the online format, right?
Yeah.
What does that first day activity look like? How do you really engage?
Today we're all going to turn on our cameras.
Yeah, we can't ask them to turn on their
I
cameras.
know, but that could be the first
Right,
thing.
but we can't because we know that there's some equity issues there, and that student who's homeless in his car doesn't want to turn his camera on for you, right? That student who's living in a very small apartment with 10 people sharing it, and they don't want to turn their cameras on, and we need to respect that. In what does that first day activity look like? I want to learn Flipgrid. I have no idea what that means. I just know people are telling me to try Flipgrid. So maybe that will make it to the board. What are some great ideas that you have for building community? Online is page 4 and face-to-face is page 5.
Yeah, Gerard's upset that he realized he didn't have to put his camera on. There's already in the chat some great things. So if you posted anything in the chat about how to build community, there's great things. Just cut and paste it into this Jamboard so everybody can see. Really good ideas so far.
So this doesn't necessarily have to go towards building community, but a memory was triggered on, us assuming sometimes. I was the director of student activities for about 8 years, and the student lounge is inside the cafeteria building. So, if you walk in, there's a little foyer. If you make a right, you're in the cafeteria. And if you go straight, you're at the lounge. And I'd be in the foyer and students would ask me all the time, can you tell me where the student lounge is? And it's right here. It's right here. It's right behind. You're almost there. Get a little exasperated even. Until one day I turned around and realized there was no sign on the wall that said this is the student lounge. There was nothing indicating anywhere that was the student lounge. And here I am frustrated with them for not knowing. There is now a gigantic sign over the entire thing that just says, welcome to the student lounge. It will never be confusing again. So sometimes it just doesn't, we don't see it.
We don't have as much on that. We've got some online. I'm not seeing the face-to-face. Maybe we all teach online. Online instructors rock.
I really like the small group discussions in the online format. I haven't tried this yet, and I want to try this next time I'm online. I've always done just whole class discussions, and then one of my colleagues said she puts them in small groups so they get to know each other a little bit, right? I love that idea. I want to use that idea. Thanks for reminding me. I won't be online in the fall, so I have to remember in the spring.
No, people are getting upset because they have to go and they're going to miss out on their smoothies that we're going to buy everybody. We just have a few more slides.
We do. And you can continue to put your ideas there, and that will be archived.
Students love small group icebreakers. They won't tell you that, but they do. Yeah, they're too shy to meet each other on their own, but if you force them to, they really appreciate it.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
And then they form natural study groups and so on and so forth. So that's all.
So while people are still jamming, let's go to the next because we're all good at multitasking. It's important that we build community not only the first day of class, but also the first week of class. And Canvas, again, has a lot of tools that I keep talking about Sue. I'll have to see if she's here. But if not, message her. Let's just like flood her email box. But there's wonderful tools on the Faculty Virtual Hub. And it's actually got, before I even realized this, when I had placed this slide, building community the first week of class, and then I was looking through the hub, I'm like, oh my gosh, she has a whole section there on how to build community the first week of class. And we were in agreement. So I really monitor my online students the first week of class, and I tell them in the syllabus, the first week of class, you're going to get sick of me. I over communicate with you. But the first couple of days, I will message every single student and say, hey, you got in, that's great. Or don't forget, you've got to do this by the end of this date, just to keep everybody on track. And there are a lot of tools in the grade book and in the assignments that you can see. And in people, you can track where they've been looking at analytics. And again, message Sue Yang. She's a delight to work with, and she may be doing workshops or something. But get familiar with those tools. They help you become so much more efficient in teaching, but also able to personalize your instruction and monitoring them. the first week of class, I know we added Starfish for the first week because that's when you can tell if a student has technology issues. And if it's an online class, or if you're heavy into Canvas, or you have an ebook and the student doesn't have technology, they may be afraid to tell you that. So if you're heavily reliant on technology, message, put it in your syllabus, put it in your welcome message, put it all over that if you need technology, let me know as soon as possible. And I will work to see if we can get you the technology resources that you need. But if a student logs in the first day and then they fall off the face of the earth, try to track them down and figure out why. And Starfish was great. They added that first week so that we can raise a flag, and then either a counselor or somebody from TSS can reach out to them and get them what they need. But if they showed up the first day and then they disappeared, don't just drop them. Reach out and find out why. I have found out that one of the best ways to do this, in the subject line, I'll put, "Are you alive?" Or, you know, "Why did you disappear?" I'll put some funky sentence like that, and they will respond. Probably about 85% of them will respond. And then I'll say, you know, "What's going on? I missed you. Where can we help?" And go from there. So anything in the chat that we need to know about? I see things popping up here. Where can we get training on Starfish? Carl, message me and I will help you find that answer. Because I know there's a great website. Find out if they do if they're going to be doing specific training on it. But I know it'll show up also in your web advisor. Sherilyn's doing a lot. I can't read it quick. You guys are there. What's she saying? Oh, she's got some ideas for icebreakers, asking students their favorite songs.
That could have been put in the Jamboard.
Well, you tell your dean.
Yeah, I just did, didn't I? Put in the Jamboard.
You're not the boss of me. Go ahead, Sean. Next slide. Again, you just need to create a culture that promotes trust, because if your student sincerely feels like they can trust you and that you're there to help them, I think it just totally changes the dynamics of the class. So let's go to the next slide and let's slap a bow on this, because you all want the smoothies that Marianne's not going to give you. Sean, if you can wrap up, and hopefully we've accomplished our goals between the burritos and the smoothies, about how this all started and where we are now.
This all started pre-pandemic. Lydia has been an online instructor for a very long time and has runs into unique situations because it wasn't our predominant teaching method. Our predominant teaching method is face-to-face. And so it was, you know, it's easier for us to kind of deal with those, but when it happens in the online environment, how do we deal with it, or how do we get proof? So that's kind of how this started, was working through how do you manage behavior in that online environment, and how do you create those boundaries that mirror the classroom? How do you teach that to students and make sure that they know it's appropriate? I don't know if you've been on any social media, but the rules of social media seem to be nasty and mean-spirited. And I believe the word troll is attributed to a lot of the stuff that comes out. And there's some trolling behavior that can happen in discussion boards or assignment boards online. We need to make sure that they understand that this is a no troll zone, that we support each other, and that anything that's said in an online environment would be the equivalent of saying it inside the classroom. You will have students that will help you manage the class. They're in every class that you have. They'll help the other students understand the rules. Having conversations with your colleagues, I think, is very important. I mean, just for your own professional development and knowledge. The campus is large. It has a lot of moving parts. It's very difficult to know everything, especially support available for students. So continuing to have conversations, allowing your peers in other disciplines to look at your work to make sure that it's open and clear is kind of what we're up to, is really having the conversation and continuing, some of the work that comes out of Ramrail. I will say this though, and I think it's kind of funny. The comments of people who go through Ramrail is they like it, and it's a whole lot of homework. I want you to think about that. We have full-time faculty who have been asked to read 5 pages and say it's too much work because they have a full-time job. They got to reverse the situation. That's all we're asking. That's it. That's how this came to be. We were initially trying to put this into a flex day thread. COVID canceled our flex day, and it just kept coming up. And Lydia wanted to continue to push this resource out, get this conversation started, involve Marianne from her work in Ramrail and helping us remain equity minded in our practices. So that's where we're at today. We decided to do it now, and I know the timing's not fantastic, but if we would have done this on Flex Day, your syllabus is already done and already distributed. So if you learned something in the last session or this one that you can incorporate, there's still some time to have that reviewed by a peer, make any of the necessary changes and upload it. So we really appreciate you following along with us, and we will continue to have this discussion. I don't know if we'll continue to make presentations, but I will continue to be available.
We do really challenge you to make a friend across campus if you don't have one. If not, Marianne will be your friend. I'd be your friend, but I'm really busy right now. Anyway, have a colleague review your syllabi, and don't forget, we can't build a sense of community with students if we don't have it with our colleagues. And we still have prizes, so don't leave. But thank you, because this is how we get to know each other. And even in sessions like Ramrail or Flex Day, get out of your shell. And we need to get back and build a sense of community, because COVID kind of screwed that up. So can you go to the next slide? Because this is one of my favorite pieces of artwork that I ever created. And all 3 of them are not on this session. So what are they going to do? Fire me? They need somebody in this office right now.
This is what happened when people add slides after you've approved the final deck. They add a few at the end. Holy moly.
So somebody says that this is still in Dawn's office. So if you ever get called into the principal's office, you'll see this on there. But if you go to the next one, because we have all of our divisions represented, Susie is going to do a spin the wheel. And what I did, so we've gone through, Marianne, Sean, and I, we were going to do this in the morning, and we were originally going to name this cereal and syllabi. But then, of course, Miss Healthy Marianne says, oh, we need to do smoothies or something healthy. And then we had to get mixed up with when we were going to offer it. We were going to do sandwiches and syllabi. And I didn't even think. We could have named it Sean and syllabi. So anyway, I have prizes. Susie's going to get a spin the wheel up here. And Sean, if you can go to the next slide really quick.
Yeah, thanks for toasted oats, by the way.
If anybody has any questions, I bought these at the dollar store, but email Marianne or Sean if you have any questions at all. And we are just really thankful that you have joined us, and we hope that it was a good learning experience. And now let's have some fun before we put this semester to bed. So Susie, this first prize is for Lorraine Smith oatmeal.
Yay, Sally.
Okay, we got a bunch here. This is Tabitha. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Doesn't she look like a little Cinnamon Toast Crunch? I hope somebody from her division wins. Okay, let's go. And you can pick these up in the business division office, which is BE 110. And I'm sure everybody here will be so excited that I'm sending you here. Here is Sherilyn, Frosted Flakes. But not to be undone is G, because he's like Tony the Tiger. He's great. Here we go. Honda. Woo-hoo. Okay, just a few more. I know. I was trying to go quick. Here's Dean Timwood, because he's the Irish guy. He's the Lucky Charms.
Way to go, David.
David here, or did he just cheat?
David left the building, I believe.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Cindy.
You want to spin it again for this?
Yep.
Because she likes chocolate and peanut butter, and I like Cindy. Here we go.
And I don't see Stephanie in here either. Stephanie?
What division does Stephanie? That's okay. We'll give it to her.
Okay.
What division is she in? Okay, this is one of my favorite. All you applied tech, I have Becky Barabee and Robert Pimental as Pebbles and Bam Bam, Cocoa Puffs. I think I'll get fired for doing this.
Who, Gerard?
Okay, here we go. Two more. Toasted O's. This is Sean. Toasted O's. Okay, and then we have the always wonderful Shirley McManus,
Yeah.
Apple Bits, babe.
Is that all of them?
That's it, babe. We are done. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, I'm always open for conversation. Email me.